Hey, my name is Nate. I'm 31. Until 2 weeks ago, I was just the handyman who fixed gallery rails and cabinet hinges for the rich families on Maple Crest Drive. Then, at 12:03 a.m. on a Tuesday, my neighbor knocked on my door. Her bracelets were ticking against each other, the porch lights were humming their electric song, and she looked at me with eyes that had been holding too much for too long. She asked, "Do you like big women?" And I said something that changed everything between us. Later, standing in her midnight kitchen, she whispered, "I haven't felt like I owned anything in a long time. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong." I never expected her to knock. It was 12:03 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I was sitting at my kitchen table with a stack of invoices that weren't going to pay themselves. The dishwasher had just chimed its 12-minute cycle. The sound echoed off the rental's thin walls like it always did. Outside, the porch lights hummed their low electric song, and somewhere beyond the cul-de-sac, the highway whispered its endless traffic lullaby. Then came the knock. Soft, hesitant. I looked up from my calculator, wondering if I'd imagined it. The knock came again. Three gentle taps that seemed to apologize for existing. Through the peephole, I saw her, Camille Whitford, my neighbor from the big house with the Range Rover and the perfect lawn. Hair pulled up in a messy bun, wearing a gray sweatshirt that looked expensive even when it tried to look casual. Her bracelets were ticking against each other as her hands trembled slightly. She was whispering something. I couldn't hear what. I opened the door halfway, keeping the chain on. The cool October air rushed in, carrying the smell of her perfume. Something subtle and warm. "Camille, everything okay?" She looked at me with eyes that held too much, eyes that had been holding too much for a long time. "Do you—" she started, then stopped, took a breath. "Do you like big women?" I stared at her, not because of the question, but because of how she'd asked it, like she was bracing herself for a punch. I unhooked the chain, opened the door completely. I like the woman who shows up at midnight because she can't pretend anymore. Something shifted in her face. A half laugh escaped, part relief, part disbelief. I. She looked down at herself, then back at me. "I have a gala tomorrow night. The foundation thing. My dress. It won't zip. Graham's coming home Friday, and I need—" She paused. "I need honest eyes. Not flattery. Not lies about how I look fine when I don't." I stepped back, making room. "Come in." "No." She shook her head quickly. "Not— not like that. Can we— could we do this at my place? In the kitchen, maybe? With the doors open?" I understood. "Keep it visible. Keep it clean. Let me grab my tools." She waited on my porch while I collected what I'd need. A small toolkit from my van, clothespins, the kind of supplies that turned problems into solutions, one careful adjustment at a time. Walking to her house felt different at midnight. The HOA streetlights cast everything in amber, and the doorbell cameras watched from their perches like digital owls. Every step felt loud against the pristine sidewalk. Her kitchen blazed with light, marble counters gleaming, a garment steamer hissing softly in the corner, and the lingering smell of rosemary lemon chicken cooling on a glass tray. And then she showed me the dress, emerald green, deep as forest shadows, beautiful fabric that probably cost more than I made in a week. It hung on her like it had given up halfway through trying to fit. "It's the zipper," she said, touching the back where the fabric puckered and pulled. "I bought it 3 sizes ago. Before Graham started—" She gestured vaguely at the refrigerator, where I could see the corner of what looked like a spreadsheet taped to the door. "Before he started helping me manage my health." I positioned a chair in the center of the kitchen. Professional distance. Workshop mindset. Step up. She climbed onto the chair and I studied the dress like I would study any job. seam allowance here, tension point there. The fabric wanted to follow her curves, but the cut was fighting it every inch of the way. You need more room through the waist, I said, running my finger along the seam without touching her skin. And the shoulders. They're pulling because the back panel is too narrow. I clipped the fabric in 3 places, creating temporary relief. The dress relaxed immediately. Better? She looked at herself in the dark window reflection. I can breathe. Good posture, I said, meaning it. You carry yourself like you own the room. I haven't felt like I owned anything in a long time. A dog walker passed outside. The motion sensor pinged, and we both froze, hearts jumping. But the walker kept moving, the ping faded, and we exhaled together. Why me? I asked. You could have called anyone, a seamstress, a friend, because you fix things without making them feel broken first. I'd installed gallery rails in her house last month. Professional job, housekeeper present, everything proper. She'd thanked me without lingering. But I'd noticed things, the way she apologized for taking up space, the way she flinched when her husband called her during the workday. This stays between us, I said. Of course. And nothing happens here that we can't explain to anyone who asks. I know. The steamer shut off automatically. 1:07 a.m. The kitchen felt suddenly quiet without its gentle hiss. Thank you. She stepped down from the chair carefully. For not making this weird. Nothing weird about wanting to feel beautiful. She wrapped the leftover chicken in foil and handed it to me. Take this. I made too much. I accepted the warm package. Want to try the dress again tomorrow night, once I figure out the alterations? If you don't mind? 9 o'clock? She nodded. We stood at her threshold, the proper distance, no touching, just eye contact that lasted a beat longer than it should have. I walked home with the chicken and the memory of her saying she felt safest here, in my rental kitchen at midnight, where honest eyes didn't come with spreadsheets attached. The next morning, I was back at her house by 9 a.m., different job this time, installing that gallery rail along her staircase. Daylight made everything normal again. Professional. Camille wore a work blouse and stayed busy with her laptop. The housekeeper, Maria, cleaned around me while I worked, and everything felt like exactly what it was, a handyman doing handyman work. Until Tessa showed up. Tessa Delgado lived 3 houses down and ran the neighborhood like a friendly dictator. She sold real estate and organized HOA meetings and somehow knew everyone's business without seeming nosy about it. Camille! Tessa knocked and walked in simultaneously. I have the auction flyers for tomorrow night. She stopped when she saw me on the ladder. Oh, hi Nate. Gallery rail? Almost done. I kept my voice level. Boring? Perfect timing with the gala, Tessa said to Camille. VIP chaos, right? But the good kind. She handed me her card without being asked. If you ever want to expand into staging work, let me know. These rich buyers love built-ins. After she left, I texted my dad, doing rails in rich zip codes. His reply came fast. Be decent, be visible, be boring. 3 rules that had kept me employed for 5 years since the divorce. That afternoon, I was loading my van when Camille appeared at the curb. She looked around once, checking for neighbors, then walked over. The clothespins held, she said quietly. Good. What about the color? I keep thinking it could be deeper, richer somehow. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd saved. This green, more forest, less emerald. Her face lit up. Yes, exactly. 9 tonight? 9 tonight. The second fitting felt different, easier. We kept the doors ajar like before, but the nervous energy had settled into something that felt almost routine. Camille stepped onto the chair wearing the dress with my temporary stitches holding everything in place. I studied the alterations, making mental notes about seam placement and where to add the bias cut panel that would give her the room she needed. You're good at this, she said. YouTube University. Amazing what you can learn watching Taylor's work. No, I mean, she gestured vaguely. You see problems and fix them, without judgment. At 9:40, we sat at her kitchen counter with buttered toast and talked about ridiculous things. How teenagers at the mall described clothes now. Everything was snatched, or fire, or giving vibes. What vibe is this dress giving? She asked. Confidence, elegance. I paused. The vibe of a woman who belongs exactly where she is. By 10:58, we were standing at her threshold again. Same proper distance, same eye contact that lingered just long enough to mean something. See you tomorrow, I said. Tomorrow. I went home and texted my dad. All fine. His reply, thumbs up emoji. The next morning, I fixed a loose cabinet hinge for Mrs. Alder across the street. She was 72 and couldn't sleep much, so she spent a lot of time watching the neighborhood from her kitchen window. Porch lights talk to me, she said while I worked. I don't sleep much, so I see things. She said it kindly, like information, not a threat. Later, walking past Camille's house, I saw a delivery truck dropping off supplies for her garment steamer. Expensive distilled water, the kind that cost more per gallon than most people spent on groceries. That evening, Camille knocked at 9:05, earlier than usual. Graham called, she said without preamble. He's coming home tonight instead of Friday. My stomach dropped. How long do we have? Maybe an hour. He's driving from the airport? We moved fast but careful. The dress fit perfectly now. The deeper green fabric panels I'd sewn in made it look like it had been made for her. She stood in front of her hallway mirror, turning left and right. It's perfect, she breathed. It's honest, I said. The dress is finally telling the truth about who's wearing it. Car doors slammed outside. Graham's voice carried across the lawn, talking on his phone about quarterly projections. Go, Camille whispered. Back door. I slipped out through her kitchen, cutting across the dark yard to my fence. My heart was hammering, but I made it home without being seen. From my kitchen window, I watched Graham stride into his house like he owned the world. Lights came on in sequence as he moved through the rooms. Normal, routine, a husband coming home to his wife. But I could still smell dryer sheet clean on my hands where I'd touched her sleeve. The next few days blurred together. I kept busy with work outside the neighborhood, bathroom tiles in the next town over, kitchen cabinet repairs 20 miles south. But every night I found myself checking my phone for messages that didn't come. Mrs. Alder waved from her window when I drove past. Tessa posted photos on the HOA Facebook page, autumn decorations and gentle reminders about trash pickup schedules, everything normal and neighborly. On Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Camille. Thank you for green. Attached was a photo from her shoulders up. She was wearing a silk scarf that matched the dress perfectly. Saturday was the open house on Cedar Drive. Tessa needed quick shelves installed before the showing, so I found myself back in the neighborhood, surrounded by real estate chatter and the smell of fresh cookies designed to make buyers feel at home. Galas tonight, Tessa mentioned while I leveled the brackets. Camille looked gorgeous at the final planning meeting. That dress, wherever she got it altered, they did beautiful work. I kept drilling. You know how it is with foundation events. So much pressure to look perfect. Mrs. Alder appeared at the open house with a plate of cookies, steering the conversation toward the weather and how lovely the fall colors looked this year. That evening, I sat in my kitchen eating leftover rosemary chicken and watching the highway lights blur past in the distance. Somewhere across town, Camille was walking into a room full of people who wanted her husband's money and her smile. She'd be radiant in that deep green dress, carrying herself like she owned the room because for tonight, she finally did. I thought about driving past the country club just to see the lights, maybe catch a glimpse of her arriving. I didn't. At 11:58 p.m., My phone buzzed. Dress perfect, stayed for speeches, coming home. I typed proud of you, then deleted it. Typed you looked beautiful, then deleted that too. Finally, I sent a single green heart emoji and turned off the light. The next morning, she knocked at my door with a small bag from the artisan tea shop downtown. Thank you, she said. We stayed on the porch. Proper distance. The dress was. It worked. How was the evening? Her smile dimmed slightly. Graham accepted all the compliments, told people we'd reset my macros and found the right motivation. She shrugged. But I felt beautiful. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged in my own skin. You do belong. Your banister's loose, she said, changing the subject. The one by the stairs. If you're taking jobs this week, I'll put you on the schedule. That afternoon, Tessa posted photos from the gala on Facebook. Camille looked stunning in every shot, confident, elegant, radiant. In one side angle photo, I could see part of my gallery rail in the background, invisible to everyone else, but I noticed. The comments were all hearts and fire emojis. Green queen, gorgeous couple, foundation goals. Sunday night at 10:24, the HOA safety reminder popped up again. New photos this time. My truck at 12:11 a.m. from earlier that week. Still blurry, but closer than before. Tessa's caption read, "Probably nothing, just patterns." The word patterns hit like a slap. At 11:03, my phone lit up. We should stop. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, seeing my own reflection in the black glass. A 31-year-old handyman who'd gotten too close to something that was never meant to be touched. Outside, the porch lights hummed their endless song, and somewhere in the distance, the highway carried people toward their own complicated destinations. Some things were better left as whispered secrets in midnight kitchens. Some doors were meant to stay closed. But late at night, when the dishwasher chimed its 12-minute cycle and the house felt too quiet, I could still smell dryer sheet clean on my hands and remember what it felt like to see someone truly beautiful for the first time. The silence stretched for 2 days. I kept myself busy with work outside the neighborhood. Bathroom tiles in Riverside, a kitchen renovation in the suburbs where nobody knew my name or cared about my truck schedule. But every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. It was never her. Sunday morning, she finally appeared. I was drinking coffee on my porch when she walked across the lawn with a small paper bag in her hands. She looked composed, put together, but there was something deflated around her edges. I brought you tea, she said, staying on the proper side of the invisible line we'd drawn between our properties. Artisan blend. From downtown. Thank you. The gala went well. The dress was. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Perfect. Everyone said so. Good. Graham accepted all the compliments as his own, told the foundation board we'd reset my macros and found the right motivation structure. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. He said we like he'd sewn every seam himself. I wanted to say something, wanted to tell her that her husband was an idiot who couldn't see what he had. But that wasn't my place, had never been my place. Your banister's still loose, she said instead. By the stairs. If you're taking jobs this week, I'd like to hire you. Properly. Billable hours. Making it normal. Making it clean. I'll put you on the schedule. That afternoon, Tessa posted photos from the gala. Camille looked radiant in every single shot. Comments poured in. Hearts and fire emojis and people calling her a green queen. In one side-angle photo, part of my gallery rail showed in the background. I stared at that rail for longer than I should have. My work, holding up her house, invisible to everyone else. Sunday night at 10:24, everything changed. The HOA safety reminder popped up again, but this time the photo was clearer, much clearer. My truck at 12:11 a.m., license plate still blurry but the vehicle unmistakable. Tessa's caption made my blood run cold. Probably nothing, just patterns. The word patterns felt like a target painted on my back. At 11:03, my phone lit up with three words: we should stop. I watched the three dots appear and disappear, appear again, like she was typing and deleting. Then, silence. I stared at the message until my eyes burned. A 31-year-old handyman who'd gotten too close to fire and was lucky to still have his fingerprints. Monday morning, I booked two jobs outside the neighborhood. Tuesday, I drove 25 miles to install shelves for a woman who paid in cash and didn't ask questions about my schedule. Wednesday afternoon, Mrs. Alder called. "My kitchen light's flickering," she said. "Could you take a look?" I found her standing at her window with a cup of coffee, watching the street like she always did. "Fixture's loose," I said, replacing the connection. "Should be good now." "That woman misses talking more than being thin," she said quietly. I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. "Sometimes the kindest thing is knowing when to stay on your own side of the fence," she added. "But sometimes it isn't." Thursday evening, I placed my phone face down on the counter and tried not to check it every 5 minutes. The dishwasher ran its cycle. The porch lights hummed. The highway whispered its endless traffic song. No messages. Friday came and went. Saturday too. I filled the time with work. Garage storage installations, bathroom repairs, anything that kept my hands busy and my mind focused on problems with clear solutions. Sunday night, I opened my mailbox to grab the bills and found something that shouldn't have been there. A silk scarf, deep green, folded once, warm from someone's pocket. I held it up to the porch light and the fabric caught on my calloused thumb exactly like it had that first night. It smelled faintly of dryer sheets and expensive perfume and something indefinable that was purely her. No note, no explanation, just silk and silence and the memory of midnight conversations that had felt more real than anything else in my life. I hung the scarf on my coat hook where it would be visible from the door, where anyone looking would see it hanging there like a flag of surrender. Across the street, Mrs. Alder's kitchen light glowed warm and steady. She lifted her coffee mug toward me in a quiet salute that said, "I see what you see." At 2:12 a.m., her porch light blinked twice. Pause. Once. I stared at it for a full minute before I understood. Two blinks, pause, one blink. The Morse code for tea that we joked about during one of our midnight conversations. Our joke had become real. I stepped outside with two mugs, steam curling in the cool air. She was already at the fence, standing on her side like I was standing on mine. The proper distance, the safe distance. "I told him I'm done apologizing for existing," she said without preamble. "Good. Not, not about this. About us. He doesn't know about us." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "But about the spreadsheets, the macro counting, the weigh-ins every Tuesday morning like I'm livestock at market." The highway hummed low in the distance. A dog barked 3 streets over. "I threw away the scale," she said. "How'd that go?" "He'll replace it. But for now," she shrugged, "for now I don't have to see those numbers every morning." We stood there in the darkness, steam rising from our mugs, each of us safely on our own side of the property line. "Same rules," I said finally. "Daylight for work, midnight for honesty, and absolute discretion." Agreed. We finished our tea in comfortable silence. At 2:26, she retreated to her back door, and I retreated to mine. No touching, no crossing, just two people who'd found something worth protecting. The next morning, I drafted a service memo offering complimentary rail checks to all my previous customers. Professional follow-up, good business practice, When I got to the Whitfords, I marked them specifically for a Tuesday, 10 a.m. appointment. Camille replied from her work email an hour later. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Works fine. Formal, clean, like hiring any contractor for any job. At 4:30, I called my dad. Keeping lanes, I told him. Lines don't hold without posts, he said. You putting posts in? Working on it. Tuesday morning at 10:02, I was back in Camille's house with my toolkit and clipboard. Professional distance. The housekeeper was present, everything proper and billable. I inspected every connection point on the gallery rail, documenting bolt tension and noting where the wood had settled over the months. While I worked, Graham called from his office, his voice booming through the speakerphone. Foundations talking about making this an annual thing, he said. Camille looked incredible. We might need to invest in a personal trainer, keep the momentum going. Camille's jaw tightened, but she answered evenly. I'll look into it. Make sure it's someone who understands data, measurable results. When she asked about maintenance intervals, I answered like I was reading from a brochure. Quarterly inspections recommended. Seasonal adjustments for humidity changes. We exchanged exactly one smile during the entire visit when Graham mentioned how green accents in the house improved mood and property value. At noon, I was packing my tools when Tessa walked past with yard signs for her newest listing. Quarterly checks? She said, sharp eyes taking in my clipboard. Fancy service. I handed her a business flyer. Preventive maintenance, cheaper than repairs. Smart business model. That evening at 9:18, my phone buzzed with a photo. No faces, no identifying details. Just a folded green throw on her couch, matching the scarf that still hung on my coat hook. Moments later, headlights swept across my window. Graham's car, pulling into their driveway 90 minutes earlier than usual. My phone buzzed again. Not safe. Heart spike. Fight or flight. I set the phone down and stepped outside to water the plants on my porch. A perfectly normal thing to do at 9:30 on a weeknight. Alibi of routine. From across the street, Mrs. Alder's curtain shifted slightly. She was watching, keeping vigil over the quiet neighborhood where secrets lived in, the spaces between porch lights. The next afternoon, I met my dad for coffee at a diner 20 miles outside the neighborhood, neutral territory where no one knew our names or cared about our business. I need to set rules, I told him. What kind of rules? I pulled out my phone and typed while I talked. No entering her house at night again. No private photos. Fence meetings only if she initiates with the light code. Always daylight for any in-house work. And I paused. One goodbye gesture allowed. If it ever comes to that, Miles nodded. Sounds like posts. Yeah, posts. That evening, I wrote those rules on a sticky note and put it by my front door where I'd see it every time I left the house. Thursday at 8:15, the porch light blinked. I found her at the fence with shoulders that carried too much weight. She looked exhausted in the way that comes from holding yourself together too tightly for too long. Today, I threw away the spreadsheet, she said. The macro one? All of them. Every chart, every graph, every piece of paper that told me I was failing at being the right size. Her voice cracked slightly. I threw them in the garbage and told Graham they were accidentally shredded. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. Not sad tears, frustrated, relieved, overwhelmed tears. He'll make new ones, she said, but for today, they're gone. We stood on our respective sides of the fence, the proper distance, the safe distance. One human thing? She asked quietly. I knew what she meant. In all our midnight conversations, we'd never touched, never crossed that line. But sometimes the space between people becomes too much to bear. I leaned forward just enough for our foreheads to touch briefly across the fence slats. Skin to skin for exactly 3 seconds, the only intimate contact we'd allowed ourselves. Then I stepped back. She smiled through her tears. Green on Thursdays, she said. What's that? A private ritual. I'm going to wear something green every Thursday. To remember. Remember what? That someone saw me as beautiful without needing to change me first. Friday morning, I sent the HOA my proposal for standardized vendor hours. Instead of breaking rules, I was helping shape them, creating structure that protected everyone. Tessa called that afternoon. Two homeowners wanted routine maintenance quotes. My business was stabilizing, growing even. Friday evening, Camille's porch glowed steady and warm. No code tonight, no need. She was there, and I was here, and the space between us held something that didn't need words. At 10:40, we met at the fence one last time with our tea mugs. Steam curled in the cooling air. The highway hummed its endless song. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed towards someone else's emergency. This works, she said. Yeah, it works. Daylight for business, midnight for truth, always honest, never crossing. The scarf stays where it is, I said. The scarf stays. We finished our tea in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found a way to care for each other without burning down the world around them. When she retreated to her back door, and I retreated to mine, I understood something I'd never understood before. Some connections aren't meant to be consumed. They're meant to be tended, carefully, quietly, with the kind of respect that comes from knowing exactly how rare they are. Some nights aren't about crossing lines. They're about admitting which ones you drew to keep from being seen. The green scarf still hangs on my coat hook. Camille still wears green on Thursdays. The porch light still blinks in code when she needs to talk. Mrs. Alder still keeps watch from her kitchen window. And sometimes, when the dishwasher chimes its 12-minute cycle and the house feels too quiet, I remember what it feels like to see someone truly beautiful for the first time. Not because they changed for you, but because you finally learned how to look.